Welcome back from the break. Most of you will spend a lot of time in your lives thinking about technology and practicing various forms of technological practice. But maybe you will spend a lot of time by yourself. Now, when you're involved in technology and in hacking of various forms, it is always important to share your knowledge, and it's always important to have people to talk about what you're doing and to be able to ask questions. And there are various forms of doing that. Of course, you can use electronic communication methods, but one very important part of sharing and one important context where sharing can take place are so-called hackerspaces. And we have assembled a very interesting panel today of representatives of 3 different hackerspaces who are going to tell you about their experiences and experiences of hackerspaces around the world. Give them a warm welcome.
Hello and welcome to the Hackerspaces panel. In the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about different hackerspaces in Europe. Hackerspaces are physical places run by hackers for hackers that are focalization points and project spaces for the local scene. Originally, we wanted to talk about hackerspaces around the world, give a broad overview, but we noticed there are many different flavors and many different kinds of hackerspaces. And we thought it's easier if we just start and talk about what we know. So we have people from 3 different hackerspaces here, which are already very different, despite being similar in many ways too. And we are going to first introduce those 3 places, and then we are going to have a discussion about various issues surrounding starting hackerspace and running hackerspaces. So to start with the introduction, there are Bruder and T from the C-Base in Berlin. There is Jens from Netzladen in Bonn, and I'm Paul from MetaLab in Vienna. And first, T and Bruder are going to tell something about the C-Base in Berlin.
So most time when people ask me about what is the C-Base, I give the answer, the C-Base is a crashed space station under Berlin. Because this is a myth which it covers the whole thing about C-Base. But here I will go a bit more behind the curtains to show you how the C-Base is organized and how it works. So a brief overview over the history of the C-Base. It was founded in 1995 by 15 to 20 people, which had together a kitchen in a living space where they often made parties and transferred the whole kitchen into a space kitchen. So they installed different blinking lights and some monitors, or one monitor with a computer on it, and it was simulating a space kitchen, and there were a lot of parties going on. So once in 1995 they decided to rent a space to make more of this idea to create a high technology space with a lot of science fiction flavor, and they rented 500 meters, no, 2,000 meters from here in Oranienburger Straße, a space, and started with the model of membership. So every one of them was a member of a club or a foundation by paying something like 30 Deutschmarks, so it's according to 15 euro, I think. And that was the way they paid the initial costs, but they also started to have some offices in it, so 3 of them had an office in there, and then they started to make parties, exhibitions, and the organizational structure for the Seabase, which is now existing since 11 years, was created in this atmosphere, and it has not a lot changed in the last years, which is an interesting point. We should later come again to this. The initial structure was, there was a gremium called Circle, consisting of 7 to 10 members, and they had a meeting every 2 weeks where they discuss all the important things and made decisions, and also the whole coordination about this place was made in this Circle meeting, which was from a view to the history, a really good structure for a group of this 20 and later 40 to 50 active people there. And then there was also something called Vorstand, which has done the administrative part, so dealing with money, making the rent contracts, but they're not really they not really made decisions, but they had always a veto to it. So from the law perspective, they were the people who were in responsibility for everything, and also for the location inner, for not making decisions, for making decisions, but for maintaining the whole room. There was a other group. It was called the group of key members. So these people which had a key, they had also the responsibility to that the room is clean, that if someone is ringing, opening the door, and yeah. So this was how it was organized. Then in 2001, at this place, we had some problems with. It was close to Hackescher Markt, so the rents grow really fast, and we had to pay 3 times the rent than before, and also it was everything new in the surrounding, so we were looking for a new place, and we found a place on the other side of the Alexanderplatz, so to speak, close to the Jannowitzbrücke. There we moved in first time in 2001, and we had some sponsoring, so to speak. There was a big company called VBB, which is an initiative of all the transport companies around Berlin and Brandenburg. They want to make a birthday party. So for that, they gave us some money to rebuild the interior and do furniture and everything. So that was the first time we moved into the RS20. And then in 2002, there come the opportunity or the possibility to own the house by founding a cooperation. So we founded a cooperation with all the members in that house, which up to 30 people, and we took a credit and owned the house. So now we're owning it, but we still pay rent because we have to put back the credits. So when we did that, we did a complete reconstruction of the house. So we planned our new rooms, including all the modules we're using now, and we go to a temporary space. And when we came back to the RS20, that was in 2003. There was not it was not only a new location, it was also a lot new people, and also a different kind of a space then. So it gets a more older on a more older stage. So, and from this time period, Bruder can tell us some parts about how it is now.
All right, yeah, so now it's basically, we have these groups of people like in the circle where people are making the decisions, like dealing with the everyday matters of living on a space station. Then we have a core crew, which consists of the members that are like actively involved in the sea base reconstruction project. So to say, the people that are like there every day. We are holding seminars. You can visit lectures. We have weekly events going on. Like on Mondays, we have the 3D roundtable, so to say. And people from the 3D community come to the sea base and meet there and exchange techniques and whatever, show each other what they're doing. On Tuesdays, we have a cosmic open stage where people, musicians and artists can enter the sea base and play live music, make jams or whatever together. On Wednesdays, we have the Freifunk community, which is the wireless over airwaves, you know, a free, like the OSR protocol. Maybe some of you have heard of it. They're meeting there every Wednesday and, you know, exchanging experiences and building the network, making it bigger, getting new people in and developing the software and everything, stuff like that. On Thursday we have lounge and people come and play Go, which is a Japanese game. And Asian, yeah, okay. It's not only Japanese. And then on the weekends, basically, we organize parties or we rent out the sea base rooms for people who want to organize concerts or whatever. So basically, the sea base has 200 members right now, and we're becoming more and more every month, which is pretty cool because I think networking and people getting together on a regular basis every day, like sharing spaces and organizing the space, paying for everything by themselves, so the sea base doesn't get any money from the government or from any other organization. So basically what we're doing is we hang out, we exchange experiences, we develop new theories and put them into praxis. We work on all sorts of different projects, like distributing free culture via CopyCan or liboff AVG or stuff like that. So that might be enough for now for the presentation of the sea base, and we go over to MetaLab, I guess.
Next is next I'm going to give introduction on the MetaLab. The MetaLab is the youngest project of the three projects we are talking about today. We just started this year in April, and basically it all started with wishful thinking in 2002, or for some people even before that. It's really hard to say which people first had the idea. I guess it's been around at least since the 90s. that people wished to have a hackerspace in Vienna, in Austria. And so people were thinking about, and they looked at things like in Berlin, there's the Congress, there's the sea base, and in Bonn there's Netzladen, which Jens will talk about later, and then in Amsterdam you have ASCII, and in Zagreb you have MAMA, and many, many more, and many of them which we don't know yet. I hear there are things in Spain, there are things in Italy, and we don't have the contacts to those people even. So, but we wanted something like this in Vienna. And we didn't know where. There were some spaces somehow in this direction, but they were not really community run, so we decided, well, we got to do something. We got to learn how is this working in Berlin, why is it working so well here? And we invited the sea base to Vienna in 2004. To give a talk on the sea base there, and they just told us back then, oh, just squat the building we are in right now, and just do something. It's really easy, just do something, get started. We didn't really know how to do it because it didn't fit very well with Vienna, because Some of the spaces, like in Amsterdam, they have a very active squatting scene. Vienna has a very inactive squatting scene, so you need a completely different approach, different city, different people, different conditions. We already had lots of groups doing really cool work, but we didn't have none of them had a really cool space. So nothing happened, and then we started in 2005 to put a plan on a wiki. We want this, and we took inspiration from Seabase very much. And then we started building more things. We started building communication infrastructure. We built the wiki and we made it bigger. We added mailing lists. We did some collaborative text editing. We added a Jabber server where everyone who signs up sees all the other users. So if you sign up on our Jabber server, you get 150 plus users right now who are signed up at the MetaLab and can instantly talk to them, and they can talk to you without exchanging any more address information. We did some branding. We called it MetaLab operating system. We worked on a flyer for a very long time. And we just continued putting energy into it to make people believe we can actually pull this off. And people were very, very skeptical. They said, you can never finance this. It's not going to work in Vienna. There are not enough people. We continued putting energy in it. We did weekly meetings. We made protocols. We put them online. We did other events where we met people and talked about the whole thing. And we told people, we do all this virtual infrastructure and all this work because we want physical infrastructure for electronic experiments, for free wireless networks, for robotics, for social software experiments, and other kind of social software experiments. Playing Go, like in Seabase. The Seabase is a very active Go club. We want to have talks. This is a photo again stolen. We took pictures from all over, from things that we admired, and put them together, made a folder out of it, made people believe this could actually work in Vienna. And we were in discussion with Seabase, which really gave us feedback on those things. We just kept working at it, and then we found a name for it last December. On the 10th of December, I think, we had a first meeting with 30 people where we actually and there was a name and a plan, and we talked about financing strategies by membership fees, 20 euros per month per person, and it just went on, and in between we all were skeptic if it worked out, but finally, after lots of work, we found a location really near the city center where the arrow is, and this is how it looks now. I mean, many things are still in construction, as those things always are. They will remain in construction for a while. And so we have a library, we have a kitchen which was just renovated, we have a main room, we have a health room where you can smoke, and we have an electronics lab which is not up yet. We want to have a media lab which just started. We already made a first video cast. And this is a picture from the main room, 360 degrees. And you see the CCC flag, so it's kind of CCC close, but what we did is, for example, I mentioned the wireless network before. There already was a club in Vienna doing wireless stuff, or in Austria, which is Funkfeuer. And, well, we don't do program, because we know there are so many clubs already in Vienna doing good work, and individuals. We just said we want one location where those people can meet, can make talks. So all we are is an infrastructure provider to people and clubs who bring the whole life into it. And so the CCC in Vienna is meeting in MetaLab, and lots of things are happening. This is some more pictures. This is some Doom-style decoration which we recently started. This was an invited project, which is a 3D printer, which was exhibited at MetaLab. And this is a blinking lights with photo memory paper experiment that is conducted in the lab. And yeah, that's the introduction for the MetaLab. And now Jens is going to talk about Netzladen.
Yeah, thank you. The Netzladen, located in Bonn, in Western Germany, is yeah, depending on how you see it, either a very old project or a very new one, a very recent one. The name Netzladen and the legal body that is behind it was first used in 2003. So it's quite recent. But the building you can see in the picture is a very old and I would say meaningful building for Bonn. Bonn is, well, some of you might know it was some kind of freak accident. It was the capital of Western Germany for some years, but actually it's a village in Western Germany somewhere. And about the best place to be in Bonn is the Altstadt, which has long been the place where all the alternative things went on. And the building where the Netzladen is now located in was always played a part in this. For instance, the local chapter of the Green Party was founded in that building, and at one point it housed an eco center for all kinds of people who wanted to save the world and stuff like that. And in the end, it became the office of an anarchist trade union, the Free Workers Union. And they went the way of all leftist groups. Eventually they split over ideological problems. So the good part of that splitting group, our friends, they contacted the CCC and said, look, we have this really nice building, or at least part of the building, and we cannot afford to pay the rent anymore. And we know you are these alternative computer guys and you have so much money, don't you want to rent the building? There were contacts between this anarchist trade union and the CCC before, because they had a film evening about Douglas Adams on the day Mr. Adams died, so we all went there and so the context was established. Anyway, we thought that would be stupid to just open another CCC branch in Bonn, because there was already a very good working CCC local office in Cologne, which is only 30 kilometers away. But we thought maybe we could start something else. And we came up with the name Netzladen, which consists of two words. Netz, network. Translated, the whole name means network shop. But in the 80s and 90s, there were these sometimes squatted spaces, sometimes legalized squats, whatever, called Infoladen, where political groups would meet and hand out leaflets to anyone. And what we really wanted to see was a place, how we call it in our slogan, a place for self-organized politics, technology, and culture. And yeah, to that very point, we still do that thing. Yeah, some pictures from the Netzladen inside. About, yeah, just let people look at it. These are not the best pictures, but these are the ones that come up on Flickr. If you search for Netzladen. It has a bar and yeah, some computer infrastructure. First picture above is yeah, a party. So a lot of these things are happening. What we thought was, we don't want to have a new organization. We didn't want to replace the CCC or anything, but rather we wanted to create a space where people would do their own things. What we thought was, there are so many open source activist groups, so many geeks looking for a lab where they can stuff their things. There are so many political initiatives or culture groups that just need a space. Let them buy time slices at the Netzladen. So basically the Netzladen is run by these groups. We have this mantra that the Netzladen itself doesn't exist, but everything goes through the groups. For instance, we have all these day-to-day matters of operations, like gas that we need for heating, or drinks. We make a lot of money from selling Mate at the Netzladen, of course, and there's also Kölsch and other beer for the heretics, whatever. For instance, every month, one group has to care for one of these tasks, like this computer group is in charge of buying the gas this month, or next month it will be that political group who is in charge of buying the drinks, and so on. We also have an open day, which is the Friday, where everyone comes together. And this sometimes leads to very bizarre and very enlightening discussions when the computer nerds bring in their laptops and the political activists back from the violent demonstration or whatever, and they sit together and talk about, you know, debugging capitalism or something. Okay, maybe next slide. See, yeah, these are some of the groups that are at the Netzladen. I will just go over it quickly. There's this anarchist trade union. There's the Linux Unix user group St. Augustine. People from a nearby technical university who are very, very active with the Netzladen. More on this later. They were really the ones who pushed forward the project at the very beginning. There's the Bonn open source Nutzergruppe, BossNG. I think it's, they are not meeting there anymore. Anyway, there's Bytewurf, which is a group of people who are interested in computers. They're nice. I don't know much about them. Then there's the Chaos Computer Club Bonn. And then there are the Demo-Sunnis, paramedics who go to demonstrations where you can expect a lot of police violence and do first aid on people in need who don't want to, you know, go to the other paramedics and maybe have their names transferred to the police or stuff like this. So all these groups run the Netzladen. What do we mean by self-organized? I think what is interesting about these 3 hackerspaces is we all have very different approaches and we all do things differently. And I think we will later on maybe get into a discussion. But and I'm not saying that what works for us will work for you in your city. These are just ideas that you can copy. What we mean by self-organizing is that we also reserve the right to not include groups. Basically, we are just selling space and time for groups, but we don't want to have groups that operate on hierarchies. For instance, when we started the Netzladen, we were approached by the post-communist party, the PDS, who wanted to have an office in our Netzladen, and we said no. We don't want to get involved with any of this party business. It will all end with, you know, some central person from Berlin telling you to do that, and you can all be nice people, but no, we just want to have groups who have no hierarchies and who organize things for themselves. No parties, no big business, nothing. The next thing, which is controversial when I talked it over with Paul, was we occasionally have meetings where we have to discuss some things like, okay, how is the financial situation with the shop going on, and how much is the rent and stuff. And we have some people who are, you know, in charge of this because we have this legal body of an registered organization, but actually we don't want to have something like voting for people or having representative making, you know, a decision for us. This is something that our friends from the anarchist trade union really stressed a lot. We want to have consensus and not voting. So when we have these meetings, usually we don't raise our hands because that would mean that the strongest minority would dominate all the other minorities who also have a point, but we tend to discuss until there is a consensus. It works. And I can see that you are now can come up with lots of stories, but you know, we have this group of 300 people and it will never work, but it works for us, and maybe that's a reason why we need to keep it that small. Yeah, and the other thing I already mentioned is the daily task like gas heating, drinks, snacks are rotating duties of the groups. So far we have had some success with our thing. I will stress on the computer groups a bit more, but I think the political groups and some of the cultural things that are happening there, they are also happy with the Netzladen. Maybe next slide, can we see that? I think the best thing that came out of Netzladen, although it was not a group or, yeah, it was the FrostCon in 2006, a free and open software conference, which came into idea from people who met in Netzladen, who organized it there. The after party was there. The conference per se was at a university building, but everything was born out of the Netzladen. And yeah, also there are some open software projects which came out of Netzladen. Tunnelblick, which is Macintosh GUI for OpenVPN. There's also people who wanted to do things differently from the OpenWRT project and called themselves FreeWRT, and they also met each other in Netzladen, organized a lot of things in Netzladen, so I also count this as a success story of the Netzladen. One thing that still has a very special spot in my heart, although it doesn't exist anymore, was the salon we had for some time, when some crazy member of the Netzladen crowd had the idea that she either met, you know, political geeks or technical geeks in Netzladen, but she wanted to have something else. So she set up a time slice on Sundays where we would have a salon in the, you know, in the style of the 19th century upper class literary salon, where people who are educated discuss different topics. And the topics that were forbidden at that salon were politics and computers. Everything else could be discussed. You could talk about music theory, you could talk about food, you could talk about anything that would not I don't get it. Did I say something funny? Well, anything that would not be boring to your listeners, and people would prepare like little text that they would read out, or would play some music that they think would be meaningful to the others, but no talking about politics or computers at that point. I really hope we will, this thing will come into being again. It's a pity that it doesn't take place at the moment, but yeah, this is also for me a little success story of the Netzladen. That's all from me, and I think we have a lot of time for questions, and this is really what we need, because I think there will be lots of questions from you.
Yeah, so we have time for questions from you. We have a few topics that we find interesting. And we don't need the computer anymore. Whatever. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, so
I actually have a question here to your right. What are the practical, what is the practical result of being able to sit in a room and talk about technology? What is the advantage of being able to physically sit next to someone as opposed to, for example, electronic communications? Why do you still need physical spaces? Because it's expensive, no?
Okay, for starters, it's not that expensive. Electricity and rent in the Netzladen is about 300 euros per month for the space we rented. That's pretty cheap, I think. And this is even something that people who don't have much money can afford if they all throw their money together. the advantages are so manifold that I cannot even. We would be sitting here tomorrow if I would tell you all the stories about the advantages. But being able to walk into a room and find lots of people and being pointed to, this guy knows about blah, blah, blah. And this is what you experience at the Congress all the time. You go down to the hack center and you ask about something and someone points you to the guy sitting in the corner, and then you have a chat with him for a while. And of course, you could be looking up web pages or stuff, but face-to-face communication, nothing can beat it. And you can do a lot of interesting things with electronics communication. And the other thing is, as hackers, you need a lab. As groups who, print leaflets or have banners for demonstrations, you need storage room. You need something where you can be sure that you can just store it away and use it whenever you want. And you don't have to depend on people's homes or on, whatever. You just have your very own room and your own lab. And then once you have a lab, everyone's imagination will go wild and people will find a use for it.
Just imagine it as a permanent congress, which is happening all the time. And what you really have a lot there, which you don't have so much online, is you have feedback. And feedback in many ways is the currency of non-profit work. You get feedback for something cool you do. You get people tell you, people join in. They join your project. They help you out. They mentor you. You have, if you have a lab with a few hundred people there, and every evening and 24 hours, seven days a week, there are about 15 people there. You go there, you have such a diverse skill set, which you can tap into, which you can exchange. You learn about new ideas. We have so many projects starting there, and also people find jobs through, because it's a network. Lots of people find their jobs now through our hacker labs, and projects start, and companies start, and non-profit projects, and open source projects. It all starts because people get together. It's just like at the Congress, where lots of hacker groups started here because people met for the first time at the camp or the Congress.
Yeah, I would say it's basically about the dynamics that you have when you are really actually talking to a person that's in the same room with you, and also laughing with people that are in the same room with you is much more real than chatting and everybody's laughing for themselves. So, and also for people who are actually not inside a community, it's great to have these places in order for them to go there and explore new dimensions of organizing or networking, and to get to know something about computers or 3D or whatever people are doing there. So I think it's very important not only for hackers to have the ability of abstraction, but also to have a social space where they can get together and meet and have a relationship, an actual,
I've been involved in lots of different collective spaces, not all of them to do with technology or with politics, but many of them kind of intersecting with those things. And one of the things that I've always taken from the last disaster that I've been involved in to the next disaster that I'm involved in are many interesting failures. And I just wondered if you could share some of the interesting failures that you've had along the way of developing your different projects, because I think those are the things you learn most from.
Within an existing project or while starting a project?
Well, either really, but I'm thinking of when I first went to the Seabase, for example, I noticed that the bar had a system for registering when you were using resources and a kind of currency system, and I think I was inspired by that. And I've heard subsequently that perhaps it doesn't work as well as it could do. So there's loads of ideas that may come out when you're starting something or as you're in the process of doing it that nearly work or should work but don't work. And I think those are the ones that you can actually make something that does work from.
From the history of Seabase, they can talk hours about failures, which is in a way is such a hackerspace also a good place to do failures and to try out different things. I think one important part is for the question, if you start a new space, is you have to make the decision, is that a space which should be continuously open, or is it a project space? If it is a project space, you say, for example, okay, we do this project for half a year, and people come into it, and the energy which people put into it is different than, okay, we start something new which should exist for ages. And this is one of the main problems in the Seabase, that it was established, and the whole setting of rituals, of how decision making is dealt, how new people come into the organization, how the money flow is going, how donations were made, are built up on a system which more was a project than a long-term thingy. So this is something where you have to be really careful that your rule set you define at the beginning is always flexible, and that you, if you do a long-term project, that you overthink it again and again. Especially if it grows in a way you don't expect, then you lose the control, or if people changing, so you have someone who's taking care of the thing with the drinks, and he's doing it all the time, and then he disappears and nobody knows to do it. And so always reflecting your own structure is, I think, an important advice if you start something like that. And then a lack of transparency is also a big failure I often see, which is you said about feedback is the currency of such project. And I think seeing what's going on in your environment, so seeing, okay, this group of people is doing that cool shit, and they are doing that, and so this is also some inspiration for it. So having such a transparency is also really important, which is in a Seabase total shitty. So I think when I'm in there and I took a look at Seabase crew member monitors, I see cool shit. But if I took from the outer side, so look on the website or on the wiki or wherever, I couldn't find something of that. Yeah, so there's two things.
So I think some problems you can get into are, well, you get into problems all the time. You need to find solutions. For example, we try to do things using consensus too. So basically we try to interpret consensus into things. We let people, we discuss, we try to get things onto the mailing list if it concerns everyone. But regarding what Jens said about doing everything just with consensus, we noticed this is not working for us, for example. So when we had a flame war regarding smoking, so I think it's the reason the term flame war ever came up, because it's the hottest discussion we've ever had. Where can you smoke? Are you allowed to smoke at all in a hack lab? I think that goes with the zeitgeist too, but so we couldn't find a solution. And so we just linked it together after a lot of discussion and having real life discussion with lots of people and so on, where everyone just stated their points and some people took extreme positions. We decided, please make a complete solution, write it down or make a graphic of it, put it on our wiki, and then we are going to vote over it. And what we did is you could just order all the offers. We had 5 options and you could sort them. And then you could vote, this is my first preference, second preference, third preference, because we realized sometimes, and this is the only time we really had to do this, sometimes any decision is better than no decision, but if you have a decision, you want it to be legitimized and not have people always question who made that decision. So we just voted. We thought, in this case, voting is good. And we have other problems. We have problems with trash. That is, I think every hack lab has the problem that people bring in old computer hardware, and you're not allowed to throw it away because it's still working. And other people want, yeah, So we have those old CRT monitors, and we are not allowed to throw them away. And we have lots of old hardware, and we have old 3D old plotter, which is not working. And the thing is, some of those things work, some could be repaired, some could be used in projects, some of them will be used in projects. So you neither can throw them away without...
But most of them not.
But most of them not. So the difficult thing is, one solution to the problem of trash is to just take the stuff out from the darkest corners and put it in the middle of the room. Just, you're not doing anything bad yet, but you're at least starting the discussion, the dialogue, without using words. It's just standing in the middle of the room and people see it's there. And if you see this again and again over months, you know it's not going to be used. We're just learning this. And certainly we have thrown away things which we shouldn't have, but we have lots of... So that's some of the difficult things. And another story I've heard from Seabase, which I found really interesting, is how do you put up lockers for people to store their personal belongings? Because you will have a limited supply of those. And if you let people pay for them, for some people, paying for them is no problem. Like pay €5 a month, I don't care. So they are going to leave their stuff in there. Then if you auction them, those people will not be able to afford it, which have less money, and the other ones, it will be expensive, but people with less money will never be able to get those a locker anyway. So the solution at Seabase is really nice. They don't use money for it. They just put every few weeks, they put some paper over every locker, and if you have 3 stickers over your locker, which means you didn't open it, it's going to be emptied out. So you need to find some solutions, creative solutions for the problems of how to take out the tension of everything.
Yeah, I'll be brief about a very sad failure story we had at Netzladen. We used to have, or in fact we still have, but we're looking for a better solution. We used to have an open cash box at the bar where people would just throw in the money, and we trust them with throwing in the amount of money that they should, because of the drinks they took off the fridge or the snacks they had. And this cash box, which was open and no one watches, yeah, it was emptied several times. Yeah, this is one sad failure story where we thought that maybe the world was more ideal, but we had to learn it was otherwise. So now we have to think about a solution for that and maybe get a bit more corporate or something.
Okay, I would like to say that for my understanding, the regular reason for failure is a lack of responsibility in the first place and a lack of discipline. So if you're self-organizing, you have to be responsible and you have to be disciplined, because there's a German translation of the word team, which says toll, ein anderer macht's, which means, oh great, somebody else is going to do it. And that's not the way it works. So if you're not going to get involved and take responsibility for the things that are being developed in the network, the shit ain't going to work. So you just have to be there, work hard. It sounds like what my father told me, but it's true. It's true. If you do something, you got to do it right, and then you cannot just like do it for 2 days and then next day I don't feel so good. I'll just stay home and just fuck the project. You know, that ain't how it's working. So, you know.
There's another lesson there that we learned, which is the only thing that really works. I mean, you need to be disciplined, and if you take on responsibility, you really got to do it. Counter lesson is you don't allow someone to take responsibility if they are not going to do it and just say it. I mean, but what we noticed is that positive motivation is really the only thing that works through a sustainable period of time. So people really need to get feedback, which makes many things more difficult, because you cannot just work in, you cannot take on big projects if there are not some immediate returns, or at least the outlook on immediate returns. This is the reason why when we were starting, we needed to create lots of materials, flyers, online infrastructure, because you really need to keep up this positive feedback loop, because people are doing this in their free time, So there needs to be a benefit, strong benefit for people. And I just want to announce one thing. You can meet us outside afterwards, and we are going to tour Seabase for those who are interested later on. And so there's going to be a guided tour of the Seabase here in Berlin, and we would really like to meet all those people who run hackerspaces, want to run hackerspaces, would like to set up communication between those groups, set up visits. Maybe next year you can present about your project here on a similar panel, because this is this is Austria and Germany. Austria and Germany, we would like to hear about all the other projects. Yeah. Yeah.
At the exit door, yeah, this direction.
Where the cigarette smokers go outside at 5, we're going to meet there, and at 5, it's a 10-minute walk to Seabase, and we're going to take a guided tour, and maybe then sit around there and get to know each other.
I've got a rather small question. Berlin, Vienna, and even Bonn are somehow large and medium cities. How do you think is it possible to create such a hackerspace in a small village with about 500 inhabitants and some even smaller villages around? Do you think you get enough people, you get enough momentum to create it in such an area?
I think you need enough people, and you need to be able to afford your place. Everything else, if you have a nice place and you are able to make it look not like a flat or an office space, and you do things there, and people from around come, or you reach schools or young people who visit there, and they just find it cool, and they know it's okay to just do things there, to create things, to change things. They are not told they need to go through a bureaucracy. It will grow, and you need to calculate from just experience 1/3 of the people who are actually join such a club actually show up every month.
I would say just try it with enough enthusiasm. Probably you will be successful, and if not, you will have some interesting failure stories to share next year. But with enthusiasm, I think you can achieve a lot, and probably you will succeed.
I just wanted to comment that if you want to open a hackerspace in a small village, we found out at MetaLab that you have to have a lot of support for it from people doing stuff. And if you have like 10 people, yeah, you have to find a location that you don't have to pay for, because if you have to pay for, you won't be able to finance it, I guess. But the second thing is that there are a lot of people going to this body modification workshop after this one, and so I wanted to know if it's possible to go to the Seabase like at 6 o'clock maybe, because it's like two-thirds of the MetaLab are going to this body modification workshop. So yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah, to the first question, it was more, yeah, you're right. So if you are not enough people which the financial power, then you have to find it for free. And yeah, I will go to the Seabase in a quarter of an hour, but I will be there the whole evening. And if you come to me, I can give you a special guide, which goes for every one of you who is asking me if I'm there. To your question of is it useful or is it possible to do it in a small village? Of course, you have to do it in a way, like, I mean, the Seabase now is run 24 hours a day. There's always someone, sometimes just gambling or sometimes doing whatever. So something like that you will not have in a small village. So maybe you do something, okay, it's a nice space, we prepare it in the way this 5 people like it, and we have open one day or just one afternoon or something, and then we do and meet there. And maybe on the other day there is the group of I don't know, pigeon züchter. They want to use that place. Maybe there's a video conferencing possibility. I don't know. So dealing with such concepts, and you have seen here both of them trying to provide space for their local community, which is influenced by regional information coaches, so people which know about information in technically, but also bring information into other communities. And then I want to make an announcement. I'm also working for a group, it's called ESP, and we want to start a new hacking space in London next year. So at the moment we're discussing about it, and it's really hot, and yeah, we will do definitely next year something in London, and we hope you will notice what we do, because we're trying to do a really transparent hackerspace so that it is easy to mix up the virtual world and this hackerspace, and yeah, hope I see you there.
Thank you.